students in senior high school in our history. And it has been made possible by the policy. Yes, immediately there would be challenges for such a rapid expansion because the infrastructure of the schools would not change overnight to be able to accommodate this larger population. But you have to begin. You can't have a situation where everything is in place before you begin. You have to begin. And having begun, we are now also aggressively tackling the issue of infrastructure in the schools and across the country. Secondary schools in Ghana, across the country, the infrastructure is being improved. Once again, it is the result of good husbandry, good management that is giving us the access to the resources to try and do this. Dormitories, classroom blocks, science laboratories, assembly halls, dining halls, across the country. And for myself, when I speak about these things, I don't speak like a lot of people just from sitting here in Accra and being given statistics. I see it for myself because I'm always traveling in the country and I'm going everywhere. I think some of you who are part of the presidential press corps, you follow me around and you know it. We're going everywhere. We are not, my presidency is not about being immobilized in this place. Every year I'm on the road, traveling and seeing for myself what's going on in the country. And that's how I'm able to say with confidence that the issue of infrastructure in our schools is being systematically addressed. So these two main pillars of any system of socially inclusive, socially just development, education and health, are both in a much better place today than they were when I took office. Again, you're dealing with these matters which are essentially investments in your human capital. Health is about human capital. Education is about human capital. At the same time, if you're looking for expansion, you have also to deal with the issue of the real sectors of the economy. What are you doing about your agriculture? What are you doing about your industry? The agricultural and industrial policies of the government have been reduced into some slogans, but I think they are useful. Slogans can be useful because they focus the minds of people. One district, one factory. Planting for food and jobs. The planting for food and jobs, in my estimation, has been, its output has been spectacular. For the last 2 years, we have seen bumper harvests in Ghana because of the introduction of the program for planting for food and jobs. Essentially, it has been providing some support, state-sponsored support for smallholder farmers across the country. So, when you're talking cassava, you're talking yam, you're talking rice, you're talking maize, all of these basic foodstuffs in the country have seen significant increases under the program of planting for food and jobs. We no longer import maize into this country. We're doing so before I came into office. We're doing so from our neighbors. On the contrary, today we're in a position to be net exporters of food to our neighboring countries because of the success of the program for planting for food and jobs. It has its downsides to the extent in which we're subsidizing fertilizers. You know, when subsidies come, there are always a few criminal elements that will want to take advantage of the subsidies to make rent money for themselves by smuggling it across. So it has been a problem, but it is not one which anybody is either sweeping under the table or being ignorant about. We're doing our best. these porous borders that we have, to be able to police our borders better and create systems of distribution of the subsidized inputs that make it more difficult for people to be able to smuggle them outside. So the level of agriculture, then the expansion in food supply. There have been also new investments that we're making in our agriculture with the intention not just of increasing output, but also diversifying the nature of our agriculture. For far too long, we have lived on the back of one monocrop, cocoa. When we have the opportunity to be able to diversify and create other cash crops that can earn us as much money as cocoa. I'm referring to cashew, I'm referring to mango, I'm referring to palm oil, I'm referring to rubber, I'm referring to shea, to all of these with the targets of support that cocoa historically has had, can also earn us a lot of money. I believe that each one of them, the 7 crops, cash crops that we've identified for development on what is about to emerge, the Tree Crop Development Authority, can earn us as much as cocoa individually, each one of them. The 2 billion earnings that we get from cocoa, we can get it from a more structured approach to the cultivation of our cashew and of our mango and our shea, our rubber, oil palm. So that's a development that is of significance for us. And we have gone so far ahead as also to create, with the help of Parliament, by the end of hopefully this session of Parliament, a new authority that will police the development of these cash crops in the same way as Cocoa Board historically has policed the development of cocoa. Again, the program for planting for export to rural development, the rearing for food and cattle. A lot of basic inputs have been distributed through the district assemblies to our farmers so that we can begin to develop our own capacity for producing meat in our country, to producing the various inputs that go into our diet, fish, all of these, aquaculture, all of these. Looking at cattle, of goat, of pigs, of sheep. So a lot of investment is going on our side into agriculture, all of it with the aim of improving and enhancing our own capacity to feed ourselves, be responsible for our lives, and not be dependent on donor contributions to our agriculture and all of that. We had happy news recently that the Upper East region was now producing an excess of rice. And then it became an issue of the marketing and the warehousing and the support of this. But at least for the first time for many, many years, we heard about excess rice production. For me, that's an important development. And at the same time, the efforts that are being made now to provide for greater warehousing capacity in the countries going forward, and the arrangements that have been made, the new Ghana Commodity Exchange, the National Buffer Stock Company, which will enhance the marketing for our farmers. Therefore, it's going to make the idea of excess less and less of a story. And at the same time, too, all of us need to get involved in this drive towards self-sufficiency. We should all eat Ghanaian rice as a beginning for all of us. Each one of us in our homes, we make a conscious effort to tell our wives and cousins or whoever it is responsible for to buy Ghana rice. That is what is happening in this place. It's happening in my house in Nima, and it is happening here. And I'm giving directions that by the 1st of January this year, all the state institutions are going to have to now live off Ghanaian produce and Ghanaian rice. We have to do these things. That's the only way we can also begin actively to support our farmers. We talk, and then people, then when they get the opportunity, they are going to go and buy foreign produce. How then are you supporting our farmers? So we need to do it. And we're going to find a way systematically to do it. But the output is growing. Because the output is growing and expanding, we are going to be more and more in a position to sustain it. All of us know that fundamental transformation that we want to see in our economy is the transformation of Ghana into a value-added, industrializing country. And that our dependence on the production and export of raw materials is systematically driven. So, industrial development, manufacturing, our capacity to make things for ourselves, then has to have a very high priority in our economic planning and development. And that is why the whole program for industrial development, which is encapsulated in the phrase "one district, one factory," is so important for the future of our country. We have to provide the basis for rural industrialization in Ghana. The figures. There are some who are very quick to ask the question, this one factory, one this, we don't see any. Where are they? I have a list here of the 58 ones that are operating, their name, their places where they are specifically. We all provided, information will be provided where they are, what it is that they're doing. I mean, the famous one in the Kumfi you've all heard about. I'm due to go and commission it any second now. But the others, the 58 others that are actually operating, their location, the kind of work they're doing, all that information is going to be provided for you. You are journalists. You can go and check for yourselves whether I'm lying or whether I'm telling the truth. There are others which are in the pipeline. We have another 26 that are also under construction and we're looking at them coming into operation the second and third quarters of next year. Once again, the nature of the enterprises, their location, are matters of record that you can check for yourselves. Now the question comes, all of this talk, where is it? You can answer the question for yourselves. There are pipeline projects, another 26 odd. Then there's a whole series of enabling enterprises that we are identifying for young people, all under the 1D1F program. There are figures altogether that give you 181 projects that are the subject of the 1D1F program as it is now. I am confident that by the time of the accounting is near next year, the Ghanaian people will have every reason to believe that the commitment I made was not just an electoral gimmick and a paper commitment, that it is real and that they can see for themselves what we have done with the 1D1F program. As we're taking down this path of rural industrialization, And it has many benefits for our, first of all, it enables work to be established in the countryside, in our rural areas. It enables us to establish the connection between our agriculture and industry, because many of the industrial enterprises that are adding value to our agricultural produce output. So those linkages are there. Then becomes a targeted way of also making sure that this urban, rapid urban drift that we're seeing in our country, which is making some of our big cities difficult to manage, etc. We can find a way of slowing down that process and ultimately, hopefully, even reversing it. But as we're looking at rural industrialization, there are also some strategic industries that we need also to find a way of building. We've chosen 3 or 4. There's our famous bauxite deposits, our iron ore deposits. Capacity now also to develop industries like the automotive industry. We have a policy now also for the development of our sugar industry. We have a policy on our automotive industry. We have set up these public corporations, GEADEC, the one for the iron and steel, to be the focal point of trying to mobilize the investment that would enable us finally to exploit our bauxite resources. We have the capacity to establish here the full value chain of the exploitation of our bauxite resources. By value chain, I'm talking about from the mining of the raw ore through its transformation into aluminum, to its final alumina, to its final destination of aluminum, and the downstream industries that can come out of aluminum. So that is a major initiative of this government, and I'm hoping that by the end of the first quarter next year, we'll be able to announce to the world the investors and the partnerships that have come out that is going to make the development of our deposits in Chebi and Yenehi and Awasu a reality. You must know that the ones in Chebi are of particular concern to me. And whatever we can do to make sure that it happens, I'm going to make sure that it happens. The same with Yenehi, the same with Awasu. But we have the same development model that we're having for our iron ore and manganese deposits. It is the two, iron ore and manganese, that can create a steel industry for you. We have substantial deposits of manganese. We're doing our best to make sure that what we have is preserved so that we can use it also for the exploitation of an iron ore. We have significant iron deposits in Shemi, in the northeast region of our country, and also in Opomanso, in the western region of Ghana. So once again, a public corporation has been established that is going to be responsible for mobilizing the investment that will enable those developments to take place. Unemployment is one of our major tasks. How to put everybody in Ghana to work. A sluggish economy cannot do that. An economy that is growing at slow rates cannot do that. It's only an expanding and rapidly expanding economy that can do that. But in the meantime, whilst we're building the capacity for this expansion, there's some basic things that we have done which I think are also significant. We put 100,000 young graduates to work who were twiddling their thumbs, sitting at home, creating graduate unemployment associations. We've put them to work under the NAPCO program. We've been able to put 60,000 more teachers into the system than when I took office. And virtually the same number again of health professionals have been recruited to the public sector. Indeed, in our period, we'll say that at least 350,000, that's the movement of the figure, people have been brought into the public sector wage bill. Now you're looking at the other initiatives that have been taken in terms of the use of the Zongo Development Fund and the IPEP. The IPEP is what has brought us these ambulances and a series of water projects around the country. I think an important incidence of the management of the economy has also been the way in which we're bringing technology to bear in the provision of public services. The paperless port system you know about, the mobile interoperability system, and the national digital addressing property system, all of these are now functioning, they're working, and they're assisting in improving the quality of public service delivery. Apart from how they are also contributing to the fight against corruption, because they're reducing the human incidence and the interface, the delivery of these services. So, across a broad range of our national life, we are seeing not just the outlines, but increasingly the detail of what we can do to transform the circumstances of Ghana. That is the goal. And I believe it is a goal that under the program and under the leadership of the party that is now in government is within reach. We have to lay this foundation. Next year is the year we have dubbed the year of the roads. Roads today are a major item in the public discourse of our country. And I think properly so. Its significance in our life is obvious as a matter of convenience, and also, of course, as a very important tool of economic growth and development. We're opening up the country, making transport of goods and services and of people much easier. But I believe they've become a big issue because of some of the claims that have been made. I remember the famous claim that was made that I was verbally slapped. Unprecedented infrastructure development was the words of my opponent. And when I had the temerity to say that I was traveling all over the country and I had not seen it, I was told that I was asleep in the back of my car. And that is why I didn't see it. But then what I discovered when I came into office was exactly what I knew when I was in opposition. Every place I went to in these last 3 years, and it's still going on up till today, the first comment of the chiefs, of opinion leaders, of everybody, Nana Yakwai. Many, many places, as you're passing through the town, so they point to you. So, even when your window is open, you can see them making the gesture. You see how? So you then know that the unprecedented infrastructure development really didn't exist anywhere other than in the Green Book, but it didn't live on the ground. So that we have this major burden that we have to discharge, how to bring our roads up to scratch. They're spending a lot of money on it. This year alone, spending over 2 billion cedis in paying contractors and giving them the wherewithal to begin to do the work. And I'm very, very confident that the 2020 commitment to it being the year of roads is going to see a significant amount of road expansion and development in the country. We are not going to be in a position to deal with all the roads in Ghana. We don't have that much money. We're not going to be able to deal with it. That's a reality all of us have to accept. But we will make a good fist dealing with some of the most significant, and systematically, as our circumstances improve, we will be able to deal with the rest. But the country will witness a significant expansion of the road infrastructure and rehabilitation of the road infrastructure in the course of this next year, which we have dubbed the Year of Roads. I have a big problem. I have so many notes, which will have me sitting here all morning doing all the talking and crowding you out. So very soon I'll leave it, and what I can't say, you may be able to ask me, and hopefully I'll be able to respond to some of them. But let me just say one or two other things. I think an important development that took place this year in our governance structure was the reorganization of the regions that took place. Unfortunately for us, there was a strong national consensus that the time had come for us to look at again, especially the demands that people were making, that they felt that they felt that it would be more effective for them if the regional organization of the country took place. And it did take place. And it took place with strong popular support. So that from 10, we've been able to come to 16 regions. And that took place, and it was facilitated by the fact that there was a strong national consensus. The major political parties, opinion leaders, traditional rulers, all of us were united that this exercise had to be done. And as a result, the difficult constitutional thresholds that there were in the Constitution, 40% turnout, 80% yes vote, we were able to meet it because there was a strong consensus. I had hoped that the consensus that was present, that enabled us to create these 6 additional regions, would carry over to the reform of our local governance system. I believed, and I continue to believe, that the time has come for us to accept the reality of multi-party involvement in local governance. Accept the reality. I don't believe there's anybody who's active in the politics of Ghana who is not aware that local government elections are highly partisan. Despite the language of non-partisan in the Constitution, they are highly partisan. And in the course of the debate on these matters, if you followed proceedings in the House and Hatzaz, I mean, that was the common ground that was there on both sides of the House, that the time had come for us to strip away the hypocrisy, look at the reality, and deal with it, and find a way. And I continue to be baffled by the situation in this matter. At the national level, party politics seems to be working. Ghana has a history in these last 25, 26 years. We've had 3 changes of government through the ballot box in this country. Yes, there have been moments of tension in these exercises, but at the end of the day, we have been able as a people to use the ballot box to change government, and on a multi-party basis. The last change is the one that brought me to this house. And it hasn't been done and threatened the integrity of our state or its stability. And as I can see, party politics has been a very important instrument in heightening public accountability in our country. Because it has made possible free expression and, apart from everything else, also to allow people to associate for public purposes. You join the parties of your choice. Nobody's forcing anybody to join any party. We do so as a voluntary act because we share common views, common values. We're saying that that is all right for the national level, but at the local level, somehow or other it becomes a pestilence. And yet, the national expression of multi-party democracy takes place at the local level. The very same people who are going to elect the DCs were the people who vote for MPs, and they do it with ease. Every 4 years, nobody has any difficulty from Abumusu or Nyinam or any of those places from where I come from in going to the ballot box and deciding they want to vote for Nana as against why. So why would they have such a difficulty in voting for their district chief? But anyway, alas, the very important constituency in this country, despite the appearance of, oh my goodness, of, yes, I think you know what it is. So, but anyway, just to explain that it was because of this absence of consensus that I decided to call off the referendum. I don't believe, and I still don't believe, that no matter what the prospects are, a matter like this, involving the revision or amendment of an entrenched clause of the Constitution, should be a party-driven affair. The one party will come, change an entrenched provision of the Constitution against the wish of another party, and that party, when it has its turn in government, will then take us through the same proposal to replace it or restore it. I don't think that that is the way, that's the kind of ping pong we want to play with our Constitution. And it is the reason why I decided to call it off that. We were going to have a yes or no on party lines on such an sensitive and important, and we call it off, and we continue to work on the consensus, and hopefully when that consensus is solid and on the ground, we can then begin to revisit the matter. I need to say a couple of things about the AFCFTA. We should all remember and have in mind the significance of this development. The African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the most important decisions that has been taken at the continental level about the future of the continent. And it is an extremely, it's extremely important that we Ghanaians embrace the whole idea. We should. Our history is there as our guide. We have been very much in the front of the whole Pan-African project in Ghana, right from the time of our first leader through up till today. The Pan-African project in many ways has been a Ghanaian project. So now that there's a consensus about the way forward in developing the abilities and potential of the continent, the AFCFTA is something that I want to recommend very much to the people and to business interests in our country, especially now that we have been given the privilege of hosting the Secretariat here. We have a major problem confronting us on our borders, the possibility of infiltration of Ghana by terrorist groups who are now actively operating in our border countries, specifically in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is our northern neighbor, and events there obviously can have an immediate impact on what we're doing here. It has meant the need for us to strengthen our security and intelligence agencies. We're responsible for the Accra Initiative. It was here that it was the idea of the security and intelligence agencies of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo, and Burkina Faso meeting regularly to share information, and plan how to deal with this issue of terrorist infiltration in the Sahel region was born. That's why it's called the Accra Initiative. We found it necessary to strengthen our military deployment in the northern and northeastern sections of the country, all of it to try and make sure that the infection that is taking place north of our country doesn't become part of our reality. Very, very happy to see that the Year of Return program that I launched in Washington last October is having such great resonance. We're expecting a lot of people have already come. And there are lots and lots, I mean, in the hundreds of thousands of people who are going to be coming also between now and the end of the year. I'm hoping that our infrastructure and our arrangements will be able to handle and deal with it. But it has also meant a big boost to our tourist revenues. It's something which is my big regret at the beginning of this year. One of them, of course, was the abduction of and killing of the 4 girls in Takoradi. Fortunately, I think the police, at the end of the day, were able to do a good job in locating and identifying their remains. There's still some controversy with 1 or 2 of the families about it, but it's something that I'm hoping we can find closure to as soon as possible. It's a matter of great regret to me that we've had to deal with it. So these are some of the thoughts I wanted to share with you. It appears that I've spoken for an hour. I wanted to speak for half an hour, but I'm hoping you have enough material there to whet your appetite for the rest of our engagement. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, sir. Please take a seat, sir. Mr. President, we're grateful for those remarks, and we're going to go straight into the question and answer segment. We will be doing our best to take the questions in batches of 5. Batches of 5. You please put up your hand, and we will invite you to the podium and take them in batches of 5. Momentarily, we would wait for our colleagues to take a seat. Can we have 1 microphone in the center aisle? We'll use the 1 microphone in the center aisle. Can we have 1 microphone in the center aisle, please? Yes. Sammy, please step up. Ghana Television, I see Ghana Television here. Adele, Sewa, Chief, please step up. So these are the first 5. I hope I've got the count right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, let's take these first 5 questions.
Sorry.
Let me encourage you also to keep your questions as simple as possible so that we can have a lot more of your colleagues ask their questions. Yes, go ahead, Sammy. Please introduce yourself properly.
My name is Sami Wiafe. I work with City FM and City TV. Mr. President, many have said that your government could have handled the banking crisis in a better way without people losing their jobs, because we are told of how millions of cedis or billions of cedis were injected into the sector to protect the deposit of investors. Do you agree that the government could have handled it in a better way without people losing their jobs? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sami. Moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Abdulhai Mumin. I work with the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. This morning, you have told us about the expansion of the economy under your watch. You have told us also about the reduction of the deficit from about 9.3 to 5.4%. However, in the point of view of the ordinary Ghanaian, Mr. President, the cost of fuel continues to go up. The cost of cement, for example, continues to go up. And the impression people have is the fact that the dollar continues to go up while the cedi depreciates. In 2016, you promised to deal with the fall of the cedi. It's 2019, and the cedi is performing abysmally at 5.6 against the dollar. Mr. President, what are you doing about the cedi and its depreciation?
So the
Thank
question
you.
is about the depreciation of the cedi. Yes. May I please encourage colleagues, let's get to the point so that many others can ask their questions. There were a few more. Yes, Adom.
Adom Kwesi Majdu from Metro TV. Mr. President, during the electioneering period in 2016, a major campaign promise you made was to ensure the provision of ambulances for the various constituencies. We are in the year of our Lord 2019, and though some ambulances have been purchased, they are comfortably parked at the forecourt of Parliament House, and yet to be disputed to the various constituencies, although the ratio of ambulance to the people, citizen in the country is 1 to 520,000, with only 55 ambulances operating in the country. When, Mr. President, can you justify the reason for this, and when will the others also be brought into the country for the reason for this, and when will they also be brought into the country for onward distribution? Thank you. And by the way, Mr. President, nice shirts.
Yes, sir, I'd like to hear you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Sewami here. I work with GH1 TV under the EIB network. The size of your government has come under a lot of scrutiny, with many insisting that the numbers of your ministers and appointees are just too high for a country of our size. Do you still stand by your earlier decision that you need these numbers to govern the country, or will you heed to the calls and reduce them? And my next question, very brief. I'm sure that you know that policy think tank Imani Africa has given your government a scorecard of 48% with regard to the fulfillment of your campaign promises. Per the assessment, it means that you have fulfilled less than half of the promises you made to the people of Ghana. How would you assess your own self with regard to the promises that you made to us in 2016? Thank you.
I think it's 5.
Yes, it's 5. And colleagues would encourage you stick to one question so that we can take a lot more. So, Chief, you hold on for us. We'll do you during the next batch. Thank you. Mr. President.
Well, let me go back. I mean, it's easier to deal with the Imani scorecard. I disagree with the 48% assessment. I think it's a much higher assessment in terms of campaign promises that have been delivered and are being. It's a figure of 72%, not 48%, in terms of the promises that have been delivered and those that are in the course of being delivered. So we have a fundamental disagreement on the figures. I believe that there's enough information that can be assembled to show that our figure, our assessment is the accurate one. The size of government, I heed the calls. It's come from some quarters. I'm not quite sure that it is necessarily the call of everybody. But I believe that the output would have been difficult with a smaller number. The machinery of government in our country is such that if the political direction at the top is not strong, the delivery becomes an issue. And I still stand by the fact that the numbers were necessary for the work that we have done. And that when you look at the output, it would have been difficult to have obtained that output without the numbers. The ambulances. The Minister for Special Development Initiatives, who's been responsible for bringing them, told me about a month, 6 weeks ago, that some of the ambulances were in, should she distribute it? And I said no, she shouldn't. She should wait till they all come in. So one day we can distribute them all at the same time to all 275 constituencies. I saw myself getting into a tremendous amount of issues if you started distributing some and others didn't get it. Fortunately for us, all of them will be in by the end of this month. 160 odd are already in, and the balance on the high seas will be here by the end of the month. The 300 will be there. On the 6th of January, I will commission them, and then the distribution will take place simultaneously across the country, and nobody's going to accuse me of favoritism, regionalism, this and that and that. So that is the short answer to your question. There's no justification from being parked there. But if I was to send a couple here, a note here, I think you know the kind of discourse that would come. So, the rate of decline in the CD. Well, first of all, the rate of decline of the depreciation of the CD is much slower than what we saw in the past. That in itself is not a sufficient, is not necessarily the full comfort that we want. All of us are affected by this matter of the CD. But there are structural problems that we don't talk enough about as far as the currency is concerned. It is time for us to do so. Yes, I believe that the management of the currency in our time has been much more effective than the period before we came. Don't have any doubt about that. There's plenty of statistics. Mr. Mann is here. He can reel off those statistics for you very easily. But nevertheless, the structural problems are those that also we ought to talk about more. You need to be able to export more to earn more money. Our structures, how are they well geared for us to up the exports? That is why some of the initiatives we're taking on the ground, diversifying our basket of cash crops, creating enterprises at the grassroots level that will allow us to grow and make things that we can then also find to export. The more currency that we're able to earn, the stronger our currency will be and the more stable it will be. We cannot escape that. That one is a matter of the market. And we don't want to go back to exchange controls and fix that. Because inevitably those are subverted by black marketeers and syndicates and speculators. So we're in the open market system and having to manage it within bounds, but always with this fundamental structural weakness that we have to address, and that is what we're trying to do. The banking crisis. In net terms, some 3,000 odd people have, 3,000 plus odd people have lost their jobs within the banking sector. There were 10,000 odd at the time we intervened. My answer to you is very simple. If we hadn't intervened, all those 10,000 would have gone out of the window. The situation which we inherited when we came was that the banking system, unregulated, or very poor regulation, very poor governance practices amongst the banks, lots and lots of irrecoverable debts, generally a very fragile, undercapitalized banking system. Would allowed it to continue for a day longer, would have brought about the collapse of the financial system in our country and the banking system. And instead of losing 3,000 jobs, we would have lost 10,000 jobs, apart from the problems that we would have had with a banking system in pieces. I believe that the actions that was taken by the Bank of Ghana, the overdue actions that were taken by the Bank of Ghana with the support of the Ministry of Finance were appropriate. Yes, they have caused some dislocations and some difficulties, but we had no choice. We had no choice. We had in fact delayed in acting, would have been very much more condemned by history as being irresponsible in the face of that crisis than the interventions that we made. It is unfortunate. The banking crisis is unfortunate. The monies that are involved in trying to preserve the savings of 4.5 million Ghanaians, 15, 16 billion CDs. That money could have found better use. Don't let me use the word better use, but I could certainly imagine what it could have done for our roads, for our hospitals, for our schools, instead of it being sunk in trying to shore up the system. It was not part that was not part of the projections that we made when we were coming into office. Yes, Dr. Bawumia, the Vice President, had alerted the country to the fragility of the banking system when we were in opposition. I think he even went so far as to identify that 8 banks were threatened. It turned out that, in fact, 9 banks were what was closed. So his reputation as a prophet is well deserved. But the extent of the damage, the extent of the problem, and the monies that would be required to repair and shore up the system, that one we did not have an idea of it when we came. And as I say, we're talking 15 billion CDs, which has been poured into the system to shore up our financial system, and as well as helping to increase and to the capitalization of the banks. That money could have been spent in other ways that would have brought, if you like, directly more benefits to our people. So I will have to once again disagree with you. I believe that we had no option, and that the manner in which we intervened was absolutely right. We could not have waited any longer, and I've yet to be told of the model of rescue that would have been preferable and more effective than what we did. I think that what we did was essential, and it was right. That the efforts that are being made to make sure that people do not lose out of this exercise are ongoing. The small savings in the savings, loans, and micro system, the provision that has been made makes it possible for 95% of depositors to be guaranteed of their monies. In the banking system too, the access of people to their monies is being guaranteed. In the process, we've had this net fallout in terms of those who are employed in the system. But it is the whole business of can't make omelets without breaking eggs and all of that. It's unfortunate, but it was not a situation of our creation. We inherited the situation. We inherited the situation. We inherited the situation because previous regulators of the system were not prepared to act when they should have done so. And that's why the thing grew and grew, and the saw became bigger and bigger. We came to try and exorcise it.
Mr. President, thank you. We'll take the next batch of 5. There's already a gentleman behind the microphone, so I'll take 4 more. And I want to stress, let's stick to it, else then I have to interrupt you. Yes, the gentleman in white here. Yes, sir. Latif, please come on. Well, they all end up being in white.
You have to be in white. If they want, you have to be in white. Otherwise, you will not be recognized.
They turn it off. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Abed Yenim from Net2 TV. Your party is built on property owning democracy, and this can be possible when you have large stock of affordable homes that makes sense to the ordinary people or working class people. So far, we haven't seen much of that under your government. Is there any hope going forward?
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Kwekudeuru. I work with Kingdom FM under Unique Kingdom Communication. We know or according to Transparency International, their local chapter, we lose around $3 billion to corruption annually, which is far higher than what we are leveraging our bauxite for under the Sino-Hydro deal. Mr. President, in our country, punishing corruption to serve as deterrent is something we have not been seeing. I want to know the state of investigations and prosecution of some corruption cases or allegations which seems to be dying naturally. Key amongst them are some members of parliament who were alleged to have received double salary under the elsewhere administration. And then the other corruption allegations, like the robbing the assemblies and key bus branding and a host of others.
Okay,
we want to know the state of the investigation and whether you are interested in prosecuting those cases or not. Thank you.
Okay, so let me come to Latif here. Yeah.
My name is Abdul Rahman.
AR, if you hold on just a moment. I'm taking a question from the side.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable. Mr. President, my name is Latif Idris. I report for Joy News. In few weeks, you'll be 3 years in office. If you look back to those 3 years and the kind of work that you have done over the period, and juxtapose that against the recent Afrobarometer report that says you are not in the position to get a one-touch victory in the 2020 elections. Does that projection by the Afrobarometer discourage you, or you think it's a fair representation of what you have done over the period? Thank you.
So the question is, are you discouraged by the Afrobarometer report? AR.
AR Gomda Delegai. The relationship between Ghana and Nigeria is an all-time high. But this all-time highness is being threatened by a few of our compatriots. Guta is cutting it. What are we doing about it? Although the president recently intervened with good counsel to Guta members, it has gone down, but not completely. It is festering. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Okatechi Efifa Mensa from Happy FM. For the purposes of my target audience, may I have your permission to ask my question in Twi? Right. Mr. President, yes, Omaya ye nini ekoyenim. I say yes, America for and UK, Germany in terms of infrastructure. Now, so I want to say acquire. Acquire in such a way, say pure water, crapai, eguswa, about almost so no my acquire to me 15, 20, 30 years. Drainage system, near open drain gutters. Now the fee I am almost so not on my drain a year underground tunnels. Now the question of Bibusane said, are we building a temporary Ghana?
Okay, so big question.
Okay, the tree. Okay, a tree allowed before
Mr. President, yeah, on mine. I Chirima Betimiaba, Abedi Wonder, and I say, Yachini Ama, or China Chiriman Abedi with us.
Mr. President, those are the 5 questions. First, on affordable housing. Second, on the state of prosecutions into some specific matters, double salary, etc. Third is whether or not you are discouraged by the Afrobarometer reports. Fourth is what government is doing about the Guta impasse. And finally,
quality of roads.
Yeah.
I would respond in English. It's easier. Yes, I think that it's a legitimate point about the roads that we have built in the past and the various ancillary constructions that should go along with it. I believe that if you are taking note of what is being done now, both matters are being addressed, both the quality as well as the drainage systems of the roads that are being built right around now. You can see for yourselves, even in the roads that are being done here in Accra, Lekma Road, Pukwa, all of them. You can see for yourself that a new approach is being adopted. And I'm hoping that when that is over, we will see that in fact a change has been made and that we're getting a more permanent road infrastructure than we've had up till now. Nigeria-Ghana relations. Yes, this is a very delicate and difficult issue. But I think some things are obvious. Guta are right in their interpretation of the laws of our country. The laws of our country, until they're changed, have banned foreign people, foreigners, from engaging in the retail trade in our country, as well as in activities in our markets. They've reserved those for Ghanaians. So if people who are not Ghanaians, who are known not to be Ghanaians, are involved in it, people are entitled to get agitated about it. What we need to do, this agitation, is to be more rigid in enforcing the law, more strict about the enforcement of the law. And I'm hoping that the measures that have been put in place with the support of Guta, as they begin to work now, will make it possible and therefore bring down the decibel level. The Nigerians cannot complain about our enforcement of our own laws. They're doing it in their country. So they cannot complain, and there'll be nothing discriminatory about it. If they're Chinese or the Nigerians and everything, all of them should be part and parcel of the same pot in terms of the application of the law. What I'm hoping that we have been able to put some kind of a handle on is people taking the law into their own hands. That is why I made that intervention with the Guta and his leadership, that they cannot take the law into their own hands and by that go out of the way to start closing shops and all of that. That one is, there's no future in that. And if people take the law into their own hands over their own specific grievances, before you know, we have anarchy and we don't have a state. So that one, I'm hoping that they have taken that into account. But at the same time, I think they have the onus on us, the state, to make sure that our laws are properly applied. I don't think we can escape those. And then we're going to make an effort to make sure that those laws are applied. And whilst we're doing this, I am keeping the lines open to our Nigerian brothers and leaders to let them know exactly what it is that we're doing and how we're going about it. But definitely, you will see some action in this area about our effort to, but we're, by the converse, the closure of the border. You haven't brought that up. You should have brought it up. Yes, because that too is a big problem. There are over 300 Ghanaian trucks stuck on the border between Benin and Nigeria. Perishable goods, some of them have had to recall them, others are there going through very difficult circumstances. And we're also making all kinds of efforts to tell the Nigerians that this is not the way forward. We cannot have that as a permanent solution to the issue. So the discussions are on. And I think that the statement you made that the relations are at an all-time high is good. So it is enabling us to have those discussions in a constructive atmosphere. We can find solutions. I understand some of the problems that are on the Nigerians. You spend a lot of money trying to make yourself self-sufficient in rice, and then you see next door to you, large sums of rice are being imported by the country which are twice the amount of rice that any people in Benin can eat. The obvious implication is that this rice is destined for Nigeria, and then the Nigerians are clearly alarmed about it. But we have to find a better solution than border closures to deal with international trade, and I think that all of us need to try and work on that. Well, I hope you followed what has happened in London last night. I'm talking about Afrobarometer projections and polls, etc. I'm not discouraged. I'm not discouraged at all. But because my attitude to polls has never changed. The only poll that matters is the poll on the 7th of December. That's the only poll that matters. I'm not saying that when people do polling, you then just rubbish it. No, that's not my view. You have to look at it, take it into account, analyze it, and see for yourself what is being said. But we know of situations, there are lots of people did not predict my being here. There were polls that went to say that I couldn't be here. I would never be here. I'm here. You then have to worry. You have to worry yourself about one touch, no touch, whatever. But no, I'm not discouraged. It's important for me. What is important is my program and the work that I'm carrying out, because I believe it is beneficial for the people of Ghana. And then when the time comes for the Ghanaian people to comment on it, I'm optimistic and go forward to say that I'm confident that it will be a good comment that they will make on it on the 7th of December next year. So I'm not discouraged by the Afrobarometer poll. The prosecutions. And some things, I think, escape us in our discussions. There are, unfortunately, and I don't take any particular joy in it, but there are things that you cannot escape. We have 25 persons involved in the last administration who are on trial for various acts of malfeasance, financial impropriety, corruption, etc., as we speak. Not who are about to, but who are on trial as we speak. And the amounts of monies involved collectively in those trials, $130 million and some 287 million CDs. We're talking about over together, at today's figures, over 1 billion CDs involved in those trials. So it isn't as if nothing is happening. But then, and you read about it in the papers, applications here, applications here. We want to do it within the context of due process. For me, it is extremely important. It's that these allegations that are made against, have been made against some of my appointees. For some people, the allegation is enough to convict people. I don't believe that. Allegations have to be investigated. Either they're investigated at the level of police or whatever other institutions, and they're at the same time in the court. They have to be tried. And in the process of trying people, people are entitled to make applications to test this or that rulings. All of these things delay cases. But for me, it is a better system than summary trial of people. But people are given, because the thing about due process is that it is only when you are in trouble that you appreciate it. Yes, the rule of law concepts come into play and you appreciate it when you yourself are in problems. Then you see that really being given the opportunity to test this, to test that, to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, all those come into play. So as far as the state of prosecutions are concerned, much is already happening. There's several of the cases that are there. I think you know all about them. Tuwil, Asian, Dukus, Sedna Tamakro, Bafuboni, Ernest Thompson, Opuni. All those trials are ongoing as we speak. The double salary, the members of parliament. It is not as straightforward an allegation of misappropriation as some people think. There's a whole lot of double accounting, to what extent people were taking money vis-a-vis their emoluments on the Article 70 and all of this. And I'm thinking that unless the thing is really clear-cut, and it hasn't been made clear-cut to me, to arraign a whole lot of parliamentarians, and the list is quite long, to arraign a whole lot of parliamentarians on a 50-50 case. For myself, I don't think that we do the public interest of our country a service in that way. So the process of seeing to what extent the set-offs can be there, it's been ongoing. It's not been easy, but there's a group that is doing that work, and when they finish, we will be in a position to let the country know what the final outcome of the double salary thing is. Yes, a lot of money. You've used this figure, $3 billion is lost annually. I don't know how accurate it is, but let us even take it for granted that it is accurate. One of the reasons why it's possible is that we have a poorer system in our country. The capacity of the state to be able to act to protect itself from its of the country. I speak by that the parliament itself, the judiciary, SHRAJ, the Office of the Attorney General. These are the accountability institutions, and the Auditor General. And significant amounts of money has gone into strengthening their capacity over the 3 years that I've been in office. In 2017, our first year, we increased the allocation to these accountability institutions by 25% over what there was in 2016. And in 2018, we witnessed a 34% increase over the allocation in 2016, and the same in 2019. So in this short period in which I've been in office, we've seen, 60 to 70% increase in the budgetary allocations to these accountability institutions to strengthen their capacity to do their work. I mean, take the case of SHRAJ. The operational budget of SHRAJ has increased from 16 million in 2016 to over 40 million in 2020. Because that is the path that I believe we have to go to strengthen the capacity of the organizations. When you look at the capacity of our police, of our Office of Attorney General, I mean, these are big sounding titles, Office of Attorney General. When you go into it and you break it down, you find a harassed small group of lawyers, badly paid, trying to do the best they can against a mountain of work. We need to give them more money. We need to pay them better. We need to find more money for them to be able to do their work. All those things are part and parcel of the struggle against corruption. And that path, so long as I'm in office, we're going to continue down that path. We even had the Auditor General. I don't remember if you remember recently the Auditor General making these remarks about how facilities and resources have been given to the Auditor General that had never happened in their history before. The executive has played its part. I hope you're aware when there was a change of government, the first announcement we had was a ban on procurement of vehicles. Is that not it? But this was the time government gave us the permission to buy 34 vehicles to support the audit service. We had never bought 10 vehicles in the history of the audit service before. These are the measures that we are taking to strengthen the accountability institutions in our country so that they can do their work more effectively. We can continue to shout as much as we like. If the institutions that are meant to deal with corruption don't have the means and the capacity to do so, we'll be whistling in the dark. So, yes, we recognize the deleterious effects of corruption, but the will to do something about it is manifest. And in my case, I'm putting my mouth where my words are. Actually, you finding resources to be able to enable them to do their work well. And then I want to come to the final part of this matter, these accusations against my appointees. There is not one allegation that has been leveled against any of them that has not been investigated. They're not investigated by me. I know there's a big cry in NDC circles that I'm Mr. Clear President. I don't clear anybody. I don't have the power to clear anybody because I don't have the power to investigate anybody. I'm not the one, I'm not an investigating agency. I'm a president. I'm an executive leader of the country. I don't do investigations. Investigations are done by SRAS. They're done by the parliament. They're done by the police. And when they give me a report that they have not found any basis for the allegation, I accept it, because that is the way that our institutions have to work. And somehow or other, those who make the allegation say that the mere making of the allegation establishes the fact of corruption. I'm a lawyer. I'll never accept that way of doing business. So, the corruption matter, these are the remarks I'd like to make. We need to focus on it. We have, all of us, to commit to doing something about it. There's the personal example. There's the institutional measures that we have to take. And in that exercise, I think we're all Ghanaians. We know what goes on in this country. And we all have to be part of the anti-corruption drive. It is not just a matter for the president. Yes, the president plays a very big role. He is the head of the executive of our nation. And he should play the role. But the matter doesn't end just with him. But I think that if the focus is there, if we continue down the path, strengthening the institutions, raising the bar, and making sure that the language of honesty, of integrity is a prominent part of our public discourse. And then whenever people fall foul of the law, that they're dealt with. And we do so without any political coloring. The difficulty, somebody comes and then the members of my administration are going to be examined. Then the cry immediately goes up, it's a witch hunt. Witch hunts are the other side of corruption or what? I don't understand. Let us all accept that we want a situation where prosecutors, investigators do their work without political coloring. Now, the result of it is that if you are accused, you're given an opportunity for a trial before an independent court of judges of integrity who will examine your case. If you're found guilty, you're found guilty. If you're innocent, you're then set free. I think that is the way we want to go. The affordable housing. I think there are affordable housing projects that are very much on. The Ministry of Works and Housing is falling over itself to initiate several affordable housing schemes, as is also the State Housing Corporation. I went to commission some of the work that they've done recently in Tema. So it's ongoing. The deficit is a lot. We have a housing deficit of over 1 million units. Making a dent on that is not something that is going to be done overnight, but we have to work at it systematically. And hopefully soon, we will be in a position to provide more and more and more accommodation for people.
Mr. President, thank you. You're a champion of gender rights. I want to be biased towards the ladies. Apparently, in our earlier selection, we haven't called enough. There was a lady in a spotted dress who we stopped earlier. Yes. There's another lady at the back. If there are ladies, I'll take them now. Yes, yes, madam. Yes, madam. And yes, madam. That will be 5 ladies. And then we'll continue. The president is very gender sensitive. I don't want to get into trouble with him. Yes, madam.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Chowdi Deku from Diaspora Network Television, and I would like to ask, the EC has boldly declared that if Ghanaians abroad do not vote in the 2020 elections, it will not be because of the EC, a statement that suggests the need for political will beyond the EC. Can you promise that political will to ensure the implementation of ROPA in 2020?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Beatrice Asamani Savage. I work for the Ghana News Agency. My question is, with regard to fighting corruption, the issue of assets declaration and disqualification plays a key role. So I would like to know what efforts you're doing to get the bill before Parliament passed, and then what the Attorney General recently said about initiating efforts to back that so that the law becomes more effective and progressive. Thank you very much.
Not sure. Anyway.
Yes, madam.
My name is Nanama Oseitutu. I work with Kingdom FM in Accra. Mr. President, the opposition NDC says they are ready to engage you or your government on the referendum. Are you ready for them?
Yes, let me take the final two from here.
Mr. President, my name is Nanesi Watt and I work with Oman FM Maritime and Port News. In 2016, 2017, in such a forum, I asked about how your government is going to reduce duties as you were promising and as against your developmental issues. Now, in 2019, we saw a giant step you took by cutting down 50%, the benchmark value, 50% on import duties and 30% on vehicles. And this obviously brought some praise songs from the importers community. But as to how this slash of 50 and 30% is trickling down to the consumers is what I beg to differ, Mr. President. I would like to ask that when you make such policies or such reduction, what or how do you monitor to ensure that consumers, the ordinary members, the ordinary Ghanaians benefit from that? Because as I speak, a bag of rice that was bought around 180 Ghana cedis in 2017 is now being sold around 250 Ghana cedis, even as at this time when there is a 50% slash on import duties. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Good afternoon. My name is Atiewin Imbila Lawson. I'm a journalist with Star FM, part of the EIB network. 14 years ago, 44 Ghanaians were killed in the Gambia. At that time, you were the Minister of Foreign Affairs. This year, it was revealed during the Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Committee that the soldiers were acting on the orders of then President Yahya Jammeh. Mr. President, at that time in 2005, when the incident happened, what did you do? And now that you're President of the Republic of Ghana and this new evidence has come to light, what are you going to do about it?
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
That'll be a sixth question, but go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Ama Krampa. I work with Eclipse Broadcasting Network, EBN. My question is about the year of return. So seeing that the red carpet has been rolled out for the African diaspora for the year of return celebrations, is there a way we can ensure that regardless who is president, Ghana continues to reap the benefit of this great initiative? Thank you.
Beyond the return.
Okay. Well, let me start from the last one, the freshest one. Yes, I think that's an important question because really we ought not to make this thing a one-off. It should be a permanent feature of our outreach, both in terms of using it as a vehicle for solidifying so developed a new instrument birthright, which is a whole set of between us on this side and they on in the Americas and in the Caribbean. Is already being addressed. The Beyond the Year of Return, a birthright, is a program that is being put in place so that we can continue with the momentum that the Year of Return has generated and find a way of institutionalizing the relationship. The things that are already happening apart from this year, for instance, this film that is about to be aired, the film about Joseph, which is a tribute to Tanko Beche-Bilanti and all that. These are all the instruments that are being fashioned to enable us to do what it is that you're seeking. Gambia. The people involved were killed in the Gambia. When I went in 2005, it was to establish the circumstances. I came away with a clear understanding that there was complicity on the part of the then Gambian authorities in what had been done. It was very difficult because the power arrangements then didn't permit the full investigation, but that was my clear understanding. I made the report to the Parliament as to the work that I had done in trying to unearth the problem. Now, these revelations that have come basically should lead the Gambian authorities to instigate the trials. I've spoken to the President of the Gambia on this matter, and his attitude was, you know, the position that we're in is brand new, what we're trying to do, things are still insecure, please give me time. So we'll continue to work with them. Doing something about it here would be to go and get hold of President Jammeh in Malabo and bring him here to Accra. So, unfortunately, I don't have that kind of authority and that kind of power. But in making sure that the authorities in the Gambia try and do something about it, we continue to stress it and talk to them about it. And hopefully, when they feel that the circumstances in their country, the stability they're seeking is more secure, they may be persuaded to act on the matter. The monitoring. Yes, I think it's an important contribution, how we can make sure about the monitoring. But I think that some of these things also have a little bit to do with the depreciation of our currency, which translates itself in this increase in prices. But once again, the structural answers. We should stop importing rice and eat our own. The matter of increasing the bag of rice was not a rice at all. You eat Ghanaian rice and finish with it. The National Democratic Congress says they're prepared to engage me on the referendum. Well, nobody has told me that. I'm not hearing it for the first time. But I will also investigate it and see. Maybe a bit late to restore the referendum now. It's happening, the date is what, Tuesday? The original date was Tuesday, and all the formal processes have been withdrawn. But really, I understand it to mean that they're prepared to engage about the future, about the provision. And I am very, very, very open to that, very open. We should have that kind of dialogue. The assets declaration, I'm not quite sure I understand what is being proposed in the question about those. Is it a new asset? There's already an assets declaration law. Is it the issue of publishing or what?
reviewing the assets more often and also to be able to manage
Was that such a law? I don't believe there's any such bill in Parliament. I'm not aware of any such bill. I mean, there are two things. When you say do the review more often, in principle, it's every 4 years. When you go in, you file, and when the 4 years is going out, you file again, and that provides the review. But you're talking about publishing. To make what shorter? Ah, okay. I'm understanding you better. But I'm not aware of any such law. We'll find it. But do I support such a law? I think that I mean, for instance, on the publication, I was all for it. Even before I came here, I was all for it. The idea that it should be published. A whole lot of very, very important people in Ghana say, no. That one cannot happen. It's not the Ghanaian way. We can't have that. And you can imagine what is being suggested, that your nephew knows how much money you have. For some people, it's a prescription for chaos. For different. So all of these things, you have to be able to do it in context. I mean, something like that, if it's happening, for me in Parliament, we have to do it on the basis of a free vote. Everybody to go there and go and do it on the basis of their conscience. But I'm not aware of any such law. Okay.
And the final question is on the implementation of RUPA.
Yes, I'm not quite sure I understand the statement that is attributed to the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. RUPA was passed as far back as President Akuffo's time. And until now, we were told by her predecessors that they didn't believe the machinery existed for the implementation of the law, and until that machinery came to play, they wouldn't implement it, because the administration of elections is a matter of the Electoral Commission. It has nothing to do with the government. I mean, government comes into it when it comes to budgetary demands from the Electoral Commission. That is the extent. But the system that we have had, and I think it's a good system for all of us, is that presidents are not those who organize elections. We never get any change in what's the case. So that is not so I'm not quite sure I understand what statement she did. It will not be. She has to make up her mind whether she's capable of doing it or not. And I believe there's a committee in place that is examining the feasibility of it as far as this year's election is concerned. That's what I understand to be the reality. But that would be my response.
Mr. President, we'll take a final batch.
Okay.
Mr. Pratt, I saw your hand up earlier. Do you still have a question? Oh, it's been answered already. So I'll take Mr. Pratt. I'll take Obi. I saw the sports group with a hand up here. Songo, I'll take Songo. I think Fortune. I see Bloomberg, echo from Bloomberg. And Mr. Aban, I'll give Mr. Aban a question.
Thank you also.
Mr. Pratt, we'll start with you.
Your Excellency, first of all, I don't know if you're aware of the difficulties of the oil company Tullow, and if you're aware, how would that impact on the overall revenue situation? Heads of diplomatic missions of countries which are usually considered your normal allies have been making very uncomplimentary remarks about your government. And given the fact that Ghanaian diplomats cannot do the same, how do you find this situation? And is there anything which can be done about
domestic politics
interference of foreign countries and their representatives in our
Okay, so good afternoon, Mr. President. I'm Osei Bones, I work with Asempa FM. Mr. President, you made two very profound declarations in the run-up to the 2016 election. And I believe that endeared you to many Ghanaians. And probably that culminated in that historic victory for you in 2016. The first of those declarations was that you are not corrupt, you would never be corrupt, and you would also not preside over a corrupt government. The second was that, and again, in expressing your abhorrence for nepotism, you made the point that you would also not build a government of family and friends. 3 years into your administration, Mr. President, can you boldly tell the Ghanaian people that you are not presiding over a corrupt government, and two, that you've not built a government of family and friends? That would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Bloomberg, that's a call, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. President, good afternoon. I'm happy to see you looking very well. I'm very happy. Mr. President, your government has missed your revenue targets in all the 3 budget cycles that you've had since being in government. Now, this has also come on the back of even increased oil output, which has triggered the strong growth that we have seen. Now, with Tullow telling us that they're going to do a considerable cut in crude output for next year, how do you, one, continue with your flagship programs? Now you also talk about 2020 being your year of roads. How do you combine that and still keep your deficit within the limit of 5%?
Thank you. Songo, and then Mr. Aban was the last.
Okay. Mr. President, more fire. The free education, fantastic. I really love it. Now, Black Stars coach Akwesi was given a target to win the Nations Cup, which he failed. His contract expired this month. What would be your advice to the FA and the sports ministry, or what to do with regards to whether he stays or not? And personally, do you want him to stay as the Black Stars coach? Now, also, you played a key role in getting FIFA to bring in normalization committee to normalize our football. They are done with their work, and now there's a new administration. What do you think should be the direction of football in the country? And Mr. President, also, just a few words of encouragement.
We have to leave it here and let others ask their questions as well.
Okay, Richard Comey is fighting, defending the IBF lightweight title in the US. So what would be his message to him?
Very well, very well.
More fire.
Mr. President, my name is Dan Kwekwe-Abua. I work with Peace FM. One thing that has hindered the development of our local football, I mean domestic football, has been the absence of infrastructure. Your government, through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, is putting up sports complexes across the country. How much of an effort are you putting into it to ensure that the project will be completed on schedule and will not remain in the green books of the MPP if there are any? Thanks.
Ms. Aban.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. In July 2017, you were appointed the AU Gender Champion. Drawing from the wisdom of the proverb, charity begins at home. It's been 2 years and 5 months since that appointment. Mr. President, what systemic and structural changes have you implemented to improve the lives of women and young girls in Ghana in the face of sexual assault, rape, and gender-based violence? And lest I forget, what has become of your promise to push for the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill into law? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Frank Brefo. I work with Division 1 FM. Per the rundown you gave on prosecutions and corruption, I just want to ask if you are satisfied or happy with the work of the Special Prosecutor.
And finally, Fortune.
Thank you very much. My name is Fortune Alimi. I work with Daily Guide. My question is just a follow-up to the Special Prosecutor. The Special Prosecutor has been in office over 1 year, and the report suggesting that he has so far is dealing with only 2 issues or 2 cases. And the special prosecutor himself has come out severally to say that your appointees are not cooperating with him. How are you going to get them to support his operation? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Well, instructions have gone from me to everybody in my government that they have to cooperate with the special prosecutor. He made these statements some time ago. I haven't had them repeated recently. And I'm assuming from that, therefore, that the directive that I gave of cooperation is working. But I've made it clear to the special prosecutor that if ever there are some kinds of obstacles or barriers that I can help jump and overcome, of course I'm ready and willing to do so. I've not had an opportunity to discuss anything with him in the last few months. I know he's doing his work. He's supposed to be an independent person. He is an independent official. And I'm reluctant to be attempting to micromanage or get involved or be seen to be meddling in his remit. He's a very experienced public official. He's getting on with his work. And all of us will be judges of the quality of that work. So that is what I would say. And it means that, do I say I'm happy or unhappy with his work? He's getting on with his work. That's all I can say. The Affirmative Action Bill has been a very controversial bill. It's gone through several ups and downs, and we're hoping that we're now at the last stage of its movement. Hopefully. It's due to come back to Cabinet again. There's been a recent round of stakeholder consultations on it, and it's due to come to Cabinet again for final review before it is sent back to Parliament, hopefully, for enactment. So that's where we are. What have I done about doing gender, enhancing the position of genders? Well, an important part is the school program, opening up the opportunities for girls to be able to pursue their education. And the large numbers of girls who are now going through our senior high school system is an indication that that particular challenge has been well accepted and is being met. We are making efforts to replenish the fund that there is for dealing with victims of rape and of gender violence, and the strictures. And I think that the sanctions that are involved in rape and gender violence are being applied on a daily basis in our courts across the country. I believe that that has to be the way that we go. The efforts to complete the football infrastructure. The sports ministry is doing quite a lot of work in expanding football infrastructure. Stadia are going, mini stadia are being built across the country, and the efforts are being made to make sure that what we have now is in good stead. We're in a position now to have 3 or 4 different stadia, which can be used for international engagements. Recently, we were in Cape Coast. Tamale has had one, Kumasi has, and Accra has, and that in itself is a hopeful development. The message to Joseph Kony has to be win the title for Ghana. All of us have to encourage him to do that. The direction of football, I would prefer the direction of football to be handled by the Ghana Football Association. I believe that a fundamental requirement of the FIFA constitution of the world is that politicians and governments stay away from football administration. What we can do is to give maximum support to the new FA, and the FA thinks it would be helpful for them to discuss with us and get our views, of course. Very much available to it. I thought it was important to bring FIFA into the process. when the crisis over the former Ghana Football Association brew. And in the end, it proved to have been a helpful that we want to get. And then beyond that, as much as possible, also to compete at the global level. Do I want Kwesi Appiah to say it? This is a difficult thing for me to answer. Because if I say yes, it's like I'm putting pressure on the Football Association to renew his contract. And if I say no, then I know for sure they'll not be able to do it. So let me keep away from answering that question altogether. The revenue targets and the flagship programs, we've isolated in this 2020 budget the monies that we believe are necessary to fund the flagship programs. And despite the difficulties that have come from the problems to do with tallow that our senior journalist, Kwesi Pratt, talked about, I believe that we can confidently say that we'll be in a position to continue funding those programs for 2020. I am certainly not corrupt. I continue to say that I am not corrupt. I have not been corrupt. I'm not taking any money from anybody to give anybody any contracts. It's not part of my arrangement. And I am not presiding over a government of family and friends. Yes, there are one or two members of my family in the thing. Mr. Oforiatta, who is the Minister for Finance, is my cousin. He happened also at the time to have been the person responsible for the NPP fundraising drive. Nobody made any criticism of him when he was in that position. And I don't think it's so difficult for somebody who's been the fundraiser to transform it, to transition into, what do you call it, a finance minister. And apart from everything else, as far as I'm concerned, he's amazingly capable. He's been like a magician, having regard to where we were and being able to find a way to raise money for us to do many of the things that we have been able to do. He's been a real brick, and I'm very, very satisfied about the work that he's doing. And he's not there because he's my cousin, because he's there because he is a very capable man. The first investment banker in our country, built a very successful business, and is extremely highly regarded in the world of finance and the investment community here in Ghana and across the world. And I believe he's doing a yeoman's job for this country. So I don't have any difficulty about that whatsoever. Mr. Pratt, the intervention of diplomats in our internal politics is a matter that has been going on for far too long. And all of us have been complicit in it. It may be that when people like you start raising these issues, it would enable us to do something. Because for myself, I think it is improper. I mean, it's not because necessarily the remarks are being directed at me that some of it, as far as I'm concerned, is also on the basis of misinformation. But that is neither here nor there. But I keep wondering, and I wonder whether the High Commission in the Netherlands, or the ambassador in the Netherlands, or in Denmark, or in England, or France, would be the foreign offices of those countries would look very kindly upon them taking a position on internal domestic issues. But then we know from the world that we have that there's one law for some people and another law for others. And so that is the world in which we are living. And we have for the time. But I believe it's a genuine issue that is being raised. And we should all contribute to the debate on this matter. Yeah. Oh, close. Oh, well, first of all, I want to thank you again very much. I know it was a short notice that you have been able to come here today. I appreciate it very much that you came in such numbers. It allows me every now and then to see people with whom I used to eat regularly, but who no longer find it necessary to come and visit me, like Kwesi Pratt. My good friend, Kwesi Pratt. I know a lot of people don't know that, but he was like a very good buddy of mine. But he doesn't come here anymore because he's on his agenda against my government, so he doesn't. Anymore. But nevertheless, it's excellent. I'm so happy that all of you came. Let us continue this dialogue amongst ourselves. It's about the future and the welfare of our country and the welfare of our population. Yeah, everybody has a role to play in it. And from your angle, you have an important role. I have an important role. We continue to work together. And the most important thing is mutual respect. That so long as we have that with each other, I think the rest of it can go. But thank you very much for coming. Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, and 2020, 4 more for Nana.
Mr. President, first we want to thank you for your time and for your responses to the queries that came up this mid-morning to this afternoon. We also want to thank His Excellency the Vice President, the Chief of Staff, and ministers who have been here with you this morning. Indeed, as you were speaking, I heard a few of the ministers murmuring in the background that only one of two things is happening. You are either enjoying it so much that you've forgotten they are all here, or that you are so on top of issues that you really don't require their interventions. But we're grateful to all who joined the President here. Colleague journalists, we also want to thank you for coming. As I'm sure you are aware, within the time period, this is all that we can take in terms of questions. But we are very much grateful that you joined us today for this media encounter. When we rise and we take the national anthem, His Excellency the President would stay with us very briefly to exchange Christmas pleasantries with us while we stay for the reception, and then he attends to other matters of state.